satisfied. I don't feel like I've ever embarrassed myself or my people, you know, in nothing that I've done. And yet and all, I got the whole world fearing me, you know what I'm saying? At 23, weighing 160 pounds, you know what I'm saying? And I ain't even started. I haven't even rolled my plan out yet, and they scared. I got the vice president know who I am, the president, every cop in every city.
What if the most famous tragedy in hip-hop was never a tragedy at all? What if Shakur didn't vanish in 1996, but instead slipped into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of clues so precise, so deliberate, that nearly 3 decades later, the world still can't let go? For 28 years, we've been told the case was solved, that justice would eventually catch up to whoever pulled the trigger that night in Las Vegas. But every few years, something new appears. Grainy videos, chance encounters, unexplainable footage that reignites the same question. If Shakur truly left this world, then why does he keep showing up?
And good thing he didn't, because even though we was friends, but if a pays you, I got a bullet into my skull. And one of the best friends I ever had in life is Pac.
The story begins in 2014, inside Boston's TD Garden, during a live NBA game between the Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. Cameras panned through the crowd, catching a man in the stands, bandana tied front, nose stud glinting, cheekbones sharp under arena lights. As the Jumbotron zoomed in, fans started chanting a single name: Shakur. The clip was broadcast live on national television. Thousands of people saw it in real time, and millions more replayed it online within hours. The man smiled, looked directly into the lens, but never said a word. When reporters later tracked him down, he didn't deny the resemblance. He simply laughed and said nothing, leaving the entire scene suspended somewhere between parody and proof. And here's where the timeline twists. That same year, Dwayne "Keefe" D. Davis, the man prosecutors now call the shot caller behind the Las Vegas ambush, began giving interviews that hinted at his involvement. Months later, he would face the very charges that reopened the case after 27 years of silence. The coincidence was impossible to ignore. Just as the tragic investigation started moving again, Shakur's face suddenly returned to the national stage. By 2023, authorities had arrested Davis and charged him with orchestrating the attack that took place outside the MGM Grand on September 7, 1996. He was not accused of firing the weapon himself, but of providing it and giving the order. In sworn statements, police said Davis had described every moment of that night in earlier taped interviews. Still, doubts lingered. His own attorney, Carl Arnold, told ABC News the evidence was paper-thin, relying mostly on Davis's inconsistent recollections. Basically, their whole case right now, from what I've seen, is just Keefe's statements, he said publicly. For those who already believed Shakur never lost his life, the 2014 sighting suddenly looked like more than coincidence. It looked like a test run, a way to see how easily the legend could move through a crowd again.
I believed him, because he wasn't talking just to be talking. I felt he was also coming straight, because there was a big war behind that. A war that they lost. And I think it was a war that destroyed their neighborhood.
But that wasn't the first or the last time Shakur seemed to reappear. A decade earlier, in 2004, a mysterious video surfaced online showing Suge Knight in what appeared to be a casual setting in Cuba. In the clip, a man with Knight laughs off camera, leaning into view just long enough for fans to catch his voice and profile. The gestures, the quick nods, the half smile were unmistakable. The footage exploded across YouTube, amassing over 3 million views within weeks. Yet the recording never reveals the man's full face, never shows a tattoo, never confirms what everyone wanted to believe. Still, the symbolism was impossible to miss. Knight, who was in the car with Shakur the night he was hit, had a history of saying too much. In a 2014 interview with Ice-T, Knight claimed Shakur isn't gone and might be smoking a Cuban cigar on an island. It wasn't the kind of statement you'd expect from a man who had lived through that night himself. So when the Cuba clip resurfaced, speculation roared back. If the video was fake, why would Knight, one of the few people who knew exactly what happened on Flamingo Road, choose to fan the flames again? And if it wasn't fake, what message was he sending?
You know, and I had known Jack through school there. And I used to say, "You out of your league." You know?
You hang with the big boys now.
Yeah, you out of your league.
Behind the public fascination ran a deeper story of frustration and mistrust. For decades, police departments in LA and Las Vegas quietly battled over jurisdiction and withheld information from one another. Retired Detective Greg Kading admitted the agencies were hamstrung by overlapping investigations and secret deals with informants. By the time Davis was finally charged in 2023, the case had become a symbol of everything broken in the justice system surrounding hip-hop's golden era. The more official narratives emerged, the less people seemed willing to believe them. Each new development felt like confirmation that something had always been concealed, and that Shakur himself might have chosen to disappear before anyone else could silence him. Then came the Cuba parking lot video. Low resolution, shot on a camera that looked older than the footage claimed to be, it showed a man standing beside a car under harsh streetlights. His voice is clear. "I've just been chilling right here in Cuba. Life has been good." The dialect, the cadence, even the way he used the phrase "holler back," all aligned with Shakur's known speech patterns. The clip hit forums shortly after rapper Trey from Naughty by Nature casually told interviewers he'd seen Shakur in Cuba years earlier. Almost instantly, the online community connected the dots. The man's aunt, Assata Shakur, a former Black Panther who fled to Cuba in 1980, was still living there under political asylum. If any place could protect him, it was Havana. The video offered no timestamps, no verification, yet it carried an unsettling familiarity that kept investigators and fans alike replaying it frame by frame.
And you can see the lessons that I missed when you talk to me. You can see where I haven't had a father when you talk to me. You know what I'm saying? You can see where I spent a lot of my time in the streets when you talk to me. Because the words that I say are not words that come from a mother's mouth or a father's mouth. It's words that comes from a pimp's mouth or a hustler or a drug dealer.
A few years earlier, in 2009, another strange moment unfolded thousands of miles away. TMZ published a series of crisp photographs taken inside a New Orleans bar. The man in the images looked older, heavier, but unmistakably similar. The same eyes, the same scar line along the scalp that loyal fans had memorized from close-up photos of the rapper in the 90s. According to patrons interviewed later, a local DJ announced him that night as Shakur, and the crowd cheered without hesitation. Forensic imaging later confirmed the photos hadn't been digitally altered. The subject was eventually identified as a man named William, a local resident, but no one ever explained the matching scar or the uncanny resemblance. What's more, the photos emerged just as Las Vegas detectives were revisiting old confessions from Davis's 2009 interview, the very statements that prosecutors would later use to charge him. Again, the timing was too neat. Every time the case reignited, so did a new sighting. Meanwhile, whispers from inside the industry pointed to deliberate misdirection. Former associates claimed certain figures tied to Death Row Records had privately hinted that staged appearances might have been part of a larger smokescreen to distract from the ongoing federal scrutiny of the label. By then, the rivalry between East and West Coast crews had already claimed multiple lives and careers. The idea that Shakur had faked his own end to escape both law enforcement and the music world's chaos began to sound less like fantasy and more like strategy. The album released just before his disappearance, The Dawn, The 7-Day Theory, carried clues that only deepened the obsession. References to rebirth, hidden messages in liner notes, and the now famous rearrangement of his alias Machiavelli into I'm Alive K. When fans revisited those details in light of the Cuba and New Orleans footage, it felt like confirmation that he had planned everything down to the final lyric.
Yes, and we're picking it back up. But at this level, all we're trying to do is unite. And right now, as a year, we got 1 million people that's listening. Now we can tell them something. Now we can try to get them that way, and we might lose some. We might gain some, but we would never even have that audience had we not said what was real. You know what I'm saying? And the main thing for us to remember.
By 2017, the speculation reached another level. In a music video released by the Outlaws, Shakur's own protégés, a faint translucent face appeared in the background, half visible behind smoke and stage lights. Viewers who paused to the frame swore they could see familiar eyes and a goatee. The group never addressed it directly, and technicians who analyzed the video called it a lighting trick. But the timing was remarkable. The video dropped in the same year new attention surrounded the cold case, and Suge Knight was again in headlines facing unrelated legal trouble. For believers, the ghostly image felt like a signal from someone who couldn't speak openly. For skeptics, it was another coincidence feeding the mythology. Either way, it proved one thing beyond argument. The world still couldn't move on. Every thread seems to loop back to the same contradiction. Officially, the investigation continues, with Keefe D awaiting trial in Nevada, and authorities insisting they never forgot about this case. Yet outside courtrooms, the narrative lives its own parallel life, fueled by digital forensics, social media detectives, and the emotional gravity of a man whose influence outgrew his own timeline. Each sighting, whether proven false or left unexplained, builds on the last until the border between truth and performance blurs completely. What started as a single Las Vegas shooting has evolved into a cultural phenomenon that challenges how we define reality in the age of viral evidence. 5 sightings, 5 moments that don't add up, and one question that no one has been able to answer. If Shakur is really gone, why does it feel like he's still here?
That's real for you. That's so real. I made a metamorphosis. I'm a new person today. Because I used to strongly and honestly, I feel like I could represent my generation so much because I honestly did not care whether I lived or died. But now, I cannot with people thinking I'm a rapist.
Not every Shakur sighting is real, but the fakes, they might be the most revealing part of the story. For every grainy clip that makes us question everything, there's another image that's clearly fabricated. Yet somehow, it still spreads faster than the truth. And that's where the pattern starts to emerge. The hoaxes don't just appear randomly, they seem to rise exactly when real-world tension around the case spikes. It's as if every time someone gets close to closure, a new illusion takes shape to keep the myth alive. In 2018, Suge Knight Jr. became the unexpected face of that pattern. Out of nowhere, he posted photos on Instagram showing Shakur supposedly alive and well in Malaysia, posing with Beyonce, chatting with 50 Cent, smiling like nothing had ever happened. Knight Jr. captioned the photos with claims that Shakur had escaped decades earlier and that powerful figures, the so-called Illuminati, were trying to silence the truth. The images were soon exposed as crude Photoshop edits. Lighting didn't match, proportions were off, and the same body appeared to have been lifted from unrelated publicity shots. But what really caught attention wasn't the fake itself. It was the timing. Suge Knight Sr., Knight Jr.'s father, was facing a high-profile legal battle connected to the events surrounding Shakur's final night in Las Vegas. So when the son suddenly flooded social media with proof that Shakur was alive, the question wasn't whether the images were real. It was why. Insiders in Los Angeles entertainment circles whispered that the posts were a distraction tactic, a way to shift headlines away from the courtroom and back to the unsolved mystery that still protected Knight's legacy. When Knight Jr. later reversed himself, claiming Shakur was gone but his spirit lives on, while hinting at unreleased tracks, the narrative only deepened. Was this a genuine mistake from a son defending his father? Or a carefully timed campaign to muddy the water just as prosecutors closed in? 3 years earlier, another viral illusion had taken hold. In 2015, an image stormed across social media showing Shakur laughing beside Rihanna at a California nightclub. The internet went wild, analyzing every pixel, every shadow. To the trained eye, the photo was obviously fake. The lighting angles didn't align, and Shakur's face came straight from a well-known publicity still from the mid-1990s. Yet it spread anyway because Rihanna herself had a Thug Life tattoo etched across her chest in homage to him. Fans wanted to believe their idol had returned to celebrate with one of his spiritual successors.
This is the generation of rappers that Tupac was warning about. To the piece, to the poor kids get this, so this is the generation that if you go back and listen to Tupac's lyrics, he was warned us that these young kids were coming, that we was gonna have a race of babies who make the babies that hate the ladies.
Even reputable outlets mentioned the image and coverage of viral culture, using it as an example of how nostalgia and technology had merged into something more powerful than fact. The hoax resurfaced repeatedly, always when the real investigation into Dwayne "Keefe" D. Davis edged closer to trial. Coincidence, or a convenient distraction? Publicity consultants who had worked with former Death Row affiliates suggested that the hoaxes kept Shakur's name trending whenever legal news risked shifting focus to the uncomfortable reality of responsibility. The next wave hit in 2020. A blog out of Southern Africa published an article claiming Shakur was alive in Lesotho, living quietly under an alias and protected by local officials. The accompanying photo showed a man with a shaved head and goatee walking near a market. Within hours, major media watchdogs traced the image back to a stock travel photo, digitally altered to insert familiar facial features. The story was entirely fabricated, yet it went viral among conspiracy forums already obsessed with theories about witness protection. What made it particularly suspicious was timing again. That same month, prosecutors announced new evidence in the Keefe D case and delayed proceedings to review it. The hoax fit perfectly into a pattern we'd seen for years. Every time the investigation took a real step forward, a new Shakur sighting appeared somewhere far away, dragging attention back into speculation and away from the courtroom. Even when exposed, each hoax kept the myth alive. And for those invested in keeping that myth profitable, streaming platforms, documentary producers, social media personalities, the legend was more valuable than the truth could ever be. By 2025, the technology had caught up with the fantasy. A Facebook video claimed to show Shakur walking through a Brooklyn housing lobby, nodding to a neighbor as he passed. It looked shockingly real. The skin tone, the motion, the lighting all seamless. But digital forensics teams quickly confirmed what experts feared. It was a deepfake, likely generated using new artificial intelligence software accessible to anyone with a home computer. Still, the clip reached millions before any correction could catch up. And just like before, the release date lined up perfectly with a breaking headline. Dwayne Davis's trial had been postponed yet again after investigators claimed to have uncovered new physical evidence.
I wasn't never faced with any of those issues like that. I was with him through some very, difficult times throughout his life, and I was basically his backbone. He confided in me, and he never treated me bad. So I can't, go on what the media has portrayed him to be.
Whether that delay had anything to do with the deepfake is impossible to prove. But when we look at the cycle, each court update matched by a viral Shakur resurrection, it's hard to ignore the choreography. Was someone deliberately flooding the public with confusion to make every piece of news feel uncertain? Or had the conspiracy grown beyond any single person's control, turning into a self-sustaining storm powered by technology and nostalgia? Before all that, though, there was one of the strangest episodes in this entire saga, the Sweden video from 2012. It showed a man rapping in English on a small stage in Stockholm, the crowd sparse but engaged. The performer looked eerily similar to Shakur, same facial structure, same confident stance. But the voice lacked that controlled fire, and there were no visible tattoos. Some fans swore it was him testing the waters in Europe, where the spotlight burned less brightly. Others argued it was just another lookalike cashing in on the resemblance. Even skeptics had to admit the timing was uncanny. The clip first circulated online just as Keefe D began publicly discussing his version of the 1996 shooting, years before police finally arrested him. It was almost as if every leak, every confession, every hint of closure had to be balanced by a new mystery. That Sweden footage became one more thread in a web that no one could quite untangle.
Do you think people had this misconception about Tupac and what he was?
He had two sides to him, yes. I'm not going to say he didn't. He was, but at the same time, he just, whatever he believed in, that's what he, that was just he voiced his opinion for whatever it was that he believed in, but he also had this caring love inside that a lot of people didn't see.
Each fake sighting leaves behind two stories, the one that's debunked and the one that still lingers in the public imagination. The photos, the deep fakes, the grainy videos, all of them reveal how deeply the world wants Shakur to outlive the violence that tried to silence him. They show how powerful the idea of resurrection is in a culture that treats icons as eternal. But they also raise darker questions about who benefits from keeping that hope alive. Record labels still release posthumous albums that generate millions. Streaming services repackage every rumor into docuseries and click-driven specials. Even law enforcement benefits from renewed attention whenever the case cools. Somewhere between myth and marketing, Shakur has become both a symbol and a business model. The fakes aren't just random hoaxes. They're part of the story. A story about power, money, and the people who've spent 28 years making sure we never stop asking, is Shakur really gone? And if he's not, who's been controlling the narrative all this time? So what do you believe? Did he vanish into history? Or is he still out there, watching the world chase his ghost? Drop your thoughts below, and until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep your eyes open. Because the truth has a way of showing up when we least expect it.